So I know what you're thinking. James, you're just jumping on the Vince Del Monte bandwagon. Every Damn Day Fitness, Steve Shaw have made videos. Yes, I absolutely am jumping on the bandwagon because this is hilarious. And fair play to Vince, I made a video where I unofficially auditioned to be the new face of his pre-workout supplement. An intricate knowledge of exercise science, is that necessary or needed? No? Oh, no? Okay. No. I am a YouTubing, YouTubation. I do YouTubation. And Vince did jokingly offer me the position. If you watch my channel, you will know that I recently made a muscle building video where I talked about hypertrophy and specifically the hypertrophy of muscle fibers, sarcomeres in parallel, which is exactly the concept which Vince has massacred with his new phrase of dry muscle. Dry muscle made me lose my hair. So I literally thought of 10 jokes to make about Vince Del Monte's recent brain farts. Here goes. And so MythBusters episode 4, starring Vince Del Monte 2.0, Vince 2018, Vince preloaded, Vince reloaded, Vince dry muscle Del Monte. Can you build 41 pounds of muscle in 6 months? And a bit of background before I tackle this issue of building large amounts of muscle mass in relatively short periods of time. Vince recently released a pre-workout supplement. He charges $100 for it. I don't care if you buy his supplement or not. I'm not really a supplement guy. I make the occasional supplement video, such as L-carnitine for fat loss and BCAAs. Am I anabolic yet? When I believe I have a good understanding of how supplements do or don't apply to the practical workings of the human body. But as I say, I have no vested interest. You can buy his supplements if you want. You don't have to if you don't want. And to be fair, Vince is more knowledgeable about fitness than Vince. And so Vince made this pre-workout supplement and it's been quite heavily critiqued on YouTube. And this is fair game because if you are a YouTuber or a public figure on social media and you release a product, you expect your product to be peer-reviewed, to be critiqued. That's just part of the field that we work in. But then following his sort of pre-workout debates that Vince has had with people such as Steve Shaw on YouTube, this other topic arose where people looked at some of Vince's newsletters and he makes this claim, a very catchy claim, that if you want to gain 41 pounds of muscle in 6 months and you want to understand the secrets to this incredible body recomposition, then click on this link, etc. And so can you pack on 41 pounds of muscle in 6 months? No, you can't, naturally. No, you can't. Even people, it's just an absolutely absurd statement. Now, if you're a newbie gains, actually, what's interesting is their strength gains will actually increase quite heavily as a new trainer, a newbie, because you're activating dormant motor units and muscle fibers are becoming online and working together to therefore react to the new stimulus of the weight that you are putting on your muscle, this resistance, this challenge. And so absolutely your strength will increase as a newbie and hypertrophy will also increase. But it's not going to increase such a drastic amount in 6 months if you are a newbie or if you are underweight. Now, if you are intermediate or advanced lifter, absolutely, consequential muscle gain is much harder once you've already created some hypertrophy and your body has already adapted to quite regular, consistent, challenging weight training. And it isn't even that statement, which is the fantastic part of this. It is that this was critiqued by people on YouTube. Of course, it's a ridiculous statement. However, it was Vince's rebuttal, and I apologize, JLo, because Vince's rebuttal is the best I've ever seen, which was absolutely fantastic. And so this is what he said, and I quote, "Hey, whenever I share the story around my first muscle building transformation, I receive skepticism and questions about building 41 pounds of muscle in 6 months. He's very clear that it's 41 pounds of muscle. Just remember that. When I began my muscle building journey, I was only 22 years old, and so I was primed to make newbie gains. I went from a horrible high-carb processed diet, yada yada yada, and a lot of backstory as to why he could gain this much muscle. So did I gain 41 pounds in 6 months? Yes, I did. Was it all dry muscle? The key word being dry. Compose yourself, James. No, it wasn't. Now, I'm not going to defend myself and tell you whether I did or didn't pack on 41 pounds of muscle in 6 months. Well, you released a newsletter telling people that you did and your key secrets to achieving it. But, okay, we'll move past that. Here's the truth. You see, every pound of hard, dense, dry muscle mass you gain also comes with a few added pounds of glycogen and water weight. So yes, I added 40 pounds of quality weight. And this is an absolute massacre of so many scientific principles. It's almost like Vince has thrown so much at the wall that it's so unbelievably confusing and confusing to read that it kind of is passable because people aren't going to really spend that much time trying to read and reread and try and understand what he's saying. And then in some of the Instagram comments, I love this from Vince. Did I gain 41 pounds of dry muscle tissue? Heck no. I gained 41 pounds of quality weight, fat-free mass, muscle, lean muscle, shredded muscle, rock-solid muscle. That is muscle. So you've just said, did I gain 41 pounds of muscle? No, I gained 41 pounds of muscle. It's just ridiculousness. And so it's really this kind of entrepreneurial salesman lifestyle coaching that Vince Del Monte's taken on with his fitness, which is kind of, in my opinion, where things are becoming skewed. And he calls himself an entrepreneur. Well, I'm an entrepreneur. But I believe that you should make money by giving people honest information. And actually, I'm an entrepreneur that's not going to tell you you can build 41 pounds of muscle in 6 months. I'm going to tell you that I'm writing a textbook about muscle building, which is going to be honest, transparent, and maybe even entertaining, but completely applicable to you. And so, here is some real science for you. If you watched my muscle building videos, thank you. If you want to, I've linked it below for those of you who want 10 minutes of your life looking at this face. But essentially with hypertrophy, we can think of it as contractile and non-contractile hypertrophy. Contractile hypertrophy involves the increase in the size of the contractile components of muscle fibers. These are specifically the myofibrils and sarcomeres, these microscopic parts of muscle fiber. This is where muscle contraction occurs. And when you are training, resistance training, you are increasing the size of these myofibrils, sarcomeres specifically, in parallel, stacking them next to each other. And now you can also increase the length of sarcomeres. However, that's more specialized and specific to certain scenarios, such as your limbs being hyperextended in a cast, for example. So when you are resistance training, it is the increase in sarcomeres in parallel, which is what you are training for. Now, if you don't fully understand that, please watch my other video for full context. But we also have this concept of non-contractile hypertrophy, which is heavily debated and critiqued. But I do believe that it is valid. Now, this specifically refers to the increase in the size of muscle due to non-contractile components. That's easy for me to say, such as your glycogen, hydration, etc. But this is not wet muscle or dry muscle. The hypertrophy is hypertrophy. When you're training, it's not as though you're training for glycogen gains. In my opinion, how you train for different forms of hypertrophy is not really well known. You're training to increase muscle fiber size. And that's going to be progressive overload. You can use different reps and sets and periodization. You can hit muscles from different angles. You can use different strength curves, etc. But you're training for hypertrophy to increase muscle size. So actually, he was referring to muscle mass. He was called out by people that know what they're talking about. And so he's tried to kind of, in my opinion, string a different story together. And this concept of dry muscle is just perhaps the most absurd concept that I've heard in YouTube this year. And that's saying something considering we have Vince Sant publishing videos. Now, when it comes to increasing 40 pounds of quality weight, now, if somebody is underweight, which is a legitimate health concern, then absolutely this is viable. But in my opinion, that's not what he's projecting at all. It's very clear. He's projecting 41 pounds of muscle gain. Now, 41 pounds of quality is a very subjective term, but that would be some muscle mass. That would also be some fat. If you're in a calorie surplus, you're underweight, looking to pack on weight. It would also be some water weight and this sort of mass. It would be a mixture of different types of mass that you are gaining. Of course, you're trying to minimize fat stores in the form of triacylglycerides. But in my opinion, it's a very catchy, clicky, clickbait type statement to make, and it kind of ties into this salesmanship, entrepreneurship, and absolutely, if you want to make money in the short term, make the most money in the short term, this stuff works. This stuff absolutely works. You're targeting beginners who don't know enough to realize why these statements are wrong. And these beginners, in almost all cases, are looking for the right information. And it's not really their fault that this stuff is the most visible stuff. And the purpose of my videos, many of my videos, and the videos that other people are making is to keep these people honest. And I have a peer review series to keep people honest. And so to wrap it up, the concept of dry muscle, this kind of hole that he's digging himself in, is just completely absurd. This idea that there's a distinction between dry muscle and wet muscle. Hey, I'm James Linker, MythBusters. I'll see you soon.